The cake had 17 candles. Not 29. Not 30. 17. No one else seemed to notice. They were laughing, sipping Prosecco, taking selfies with their arms wrapped around my wife like she hadn't just shaved 12 years off her age. But I stood there, holding a gift bag like an idiot, counting wax sticks like I was reading tea leaves. She hadn't noticed me yet. She was on the other side of the room, half draped over a man I didn't recognize. He was feeding her something, maybe a strawberry, and she was pretending to protest, mouth open just enough to catch it anyway. It was something you'd expect from teenagers trying to make their ex jealous on Instagram. Not from a woman wearing a $700 dress I didn't know she bought. That's when I realized I wasn't breathing. I hadn't since I walked in. Kayla tugged at my sleeve. Lowell, we don't have to stay. Just say the word. I didn't say the word. I should have, but I didn't. Instead, I stepped forward. The music didn't stop. No one dropped a glass. No cinematic gasp. Just a slow unraveling of glances until the only person not looking at me was her. Then she turned, and everything shifted. Her pupils shrank. Her hand slipped off the stranger's arm like it burned her. She took a step back, knocking into the bar cart. A flute of champagne toppled, and the room, finally, went silent. She opened her mouth. Maybe to lie. Maybe to laugh. Maybe to say something that would make it all seem okay. But I spoke first. I said, "Make a wish." Then I blew out every last candle on her cake. She didn't move. For once, Noelle had nothing to say. Her hands hovered over the table like she was waiting for someone to hit rewind and undo it all. Behind her, the guy, strawberry feeder, shifted uncomfortably. He didn't look like the type to fight. He looked like the type who books first class and still makes the flight attendant feel like she owes him something. I hated him instantly. Kayla stepped behind me, silent, supportive, a storm brewing behind her polite half-smile. She'd warned me this might happen. I just didn't believe I'd walk into a birthday party turned burial site for our marriage. The candles were still smoking. The whole room smelled like cheap sugar and burnt wax. Noelle finally blinked, and when she did, I could see the gears grinding in her head, calculations, strategies, fallback lies being assembled at lightning speed. "Lowell," she said, and the way she said it made my name feel like someone else's, like it didn't belong to her mouth anymore. "I wasn't invited," I replied. "I know. That was the point." She opened her mouth again, but this time the stranger stepped in. "Hey man, maybe we should talk outside." "No," I cut him off. "You can talk outside. This is my wife's party, right? The woman I pay rent with. The woman I split taxes with. The woman who told me she wanted a quiet night in while she was planning this glowing middle finger behind my back." Laughter. Somewhere behind me. One of her friends. Someone I didn't recognize. The kind of forced, awkward laugh people make when they want tension to vanish. It didn't. I reached into the gift bag, my stupid, carefully wrapped gift bag, and pulled out a photo album. Handmade. Pages and pages of our last 5 years. Labeled, dated, laminated. Her birthday surprise. I had stayed up until 3 a.m. for 3 nights putting it together. I held it up for everyone to see. "Happy birthday, Noelle," I said, flipping it open. "Here's Cancun. Here's your mom's funeral. Here's the weekend you said you were at a work retreat in Denver. Except, surprise, I found the metadata. This wasn't Denver. It was Sanibel Island. And you weren't alone." Gasps. Real ones this time. Noelle's hand shot out to grab the album, but I stepped back. No. You already got your wish. You just didn't blow the candles out yourself." I placed it on the table like a centerpiece and walked to the bar, poured myself a drink with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. My reflection in the metal cocktail shaker looked like a man unraveling. Because I was. That's when Kayla whispered to me, "Look." I turned, and I saw someone else walking into the room. Someone I didn't recognize, but Noelle clearly did. And that's when I realized she hadn't just lied to me. She'd lied to him, too. He wasn't flashy like the first guy. No Rolex, no designer loafers, no cocky smirk. If anything, he looked out of place. Understated jacket, loose tie, face pale like he hadn't slept. He didn't hesitate, just walked in, scanned the room like he was tracking someone, and then his eyes landed on her. On Noelle. And the way her entire body froze, again, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't some harmless coworker dropping by with a gift. This man had weight. His presence didn't just change the mood of the room. It split it open. She didn't speak. Neither did he. but her lips moved, just barely, and I could read them as clearly as if she'd screamed it. Not here. I stepped forward instinctively. Not because I wanted to start anything. I'm not that guy. I just needed to see his face up close. I needed to confirm what I already feared. She didn't look surprised to see him. She looked busted. Like the lie she told wasn't just unraveling. It was colliding with another lie she'd parked across town. The guy looked at me, confused. "You're Lowell?" he asked, voice quiet but firm. I nodded. He didn't offer a handshake. "I'm Ian," he said, and then added, like a punchline that landed too early. "I'm her fiancé." Silence. Noelle's friend dropped a wine glass somewhere behind me, and the shatter sounded like a bomb in a vacuum. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because what else can you do when your wife's second man shows up at her birthday party with a whole damn engagement ring in his pocket? Kayla gasped. I turned to her and whispered, "Fiancé. Not boyfriend. Fiancé." My hands went numb. I couldn't even hold the drink I'd poured. It slipped from my fingers and exploded on the floor. Noelle finally spoke. "Ian, wait. Please, don't do this here." But Ian wasn't done. He pulled something from his coat pocket. Not a ring box. A folded paper. A printout. He handed it to me with a trembling hand. It was a wedding venue contract. Dated 2 weeks ago. Signed by her. I stared at the paper, then at Noelle, whose face had gone sheet white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Ian was breathing heavily now, like he'd been holding this in for days, weeks maybe. "She told me you were her ex. That you'd moved out. That you were just the guy who kept texting." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Noelle's lips started moving again, trying to control the damage. But this time, it was too late. Because now 2 men stood in front of her. And neither of us believed a word she said anymore. The room didn't feel real anymore. Everything had slowed into a kind of warped silence, like the universe was holding its breath just to see what Noelle would do next. My heartbeat was so loud I could barely hear anything else, but I could still see. Every micro-expression on her face, every twitch of the eye, every movement of her jaw as she tried to decide who she needed to be in this exact moment. And that was the most horrifying part. She wasn't panicking. She was planning. I saw it. Not fear. Not remorse. Just strategy. As if this was a game she thought she could still win. "Noelle," Ian said again. This time his voice quieter, more dangerous. "Tell him. Right now. Tell him what you told me about him." She turned to him slowly. "Ian, please. Let's talk somewhere private." "Private?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You dragged me into a room full of strangers, pretended to be someone else for months, and now you want privacy?" My mouth was so dry I could barely form words. He didn't know? At all. Ian didn't even look at me. His eyes were fixed on her like he was watching a puzzle fall apart. She took a breath, straightened her spine, and said, "I didn't lie. I just didn't explain everything yet." Yet. Like we were all characters in her little multi-season drama, and she was just spacing out her exposition. Kayla finally spoke. "Are you seriously trying to salvage this? You're standing in front of your husband and your fiancé at the same time. How many people are you dating, Noelle? Do we need a whiteboard?" A few people snorted. The party had turned into a live soap opera, and I could see guests shifting from discomfort to pure fascination. They weren't going anywhere. Neither was I. Ian stepped forward. "She told me you were emotionally unstable, that you stalked her, that you wouldn't let go after the divorce." He looked at me now, really looked. "She said you showed up at her work with flowers and cried in the parking lot." I couldn't speak, couldn't even blink. Because yes, I had brought her flowers to work once, 2 years ago, for our anniversary, a surprise. She never came out to meet me that day, and apparently, she used it to recast me as the villain in her next relationship. I felt nauseous. Noelle was still trying to manage the narrative. "You don't understand the context, either of you. You're both acting like this wasn't complicated. Like you didn't both push me away." That was her move. Divide and deflect. Reframe the chaos as something she endured, not something she orchestrated. I looked at her, really looked. At the woman I married. At the woman who used to fall asleep on my chest while watching murder documentaries and whisper, "Promise me we'll never lie to each other." And I felt something break. Not anger. Not pain. Disgust. And that's when I did something I didn't plan. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. Opened the voice recorder app. "Say it," I told her. "Say you're married to me. Say you're engaged to him. Say it right now. Her eyes widened. You're recording me? Not for the internet. For me. So the next time I try to convince myself this was all just a bad phase, I can press play and remind myself of who you really are. She looked at Ian, then back at me. And then, for the first time that night, she started to cry. But it wasn't grief. It was the fear of losing control. It didn't matter how much she cried. Not anymore. Not after what we all knew. I stood there holding that little glowing rectangle in my hand like it was a crucifix, watching her squirm under the truth she had built like scaffolding around a collapsing building. Every second of silence screamed louder than anything she could say. Ian's jaw tightened, and for a second I thought he was going to punch me. Not hurt me. That would have been easier for him. If I didn't exist, his story could have stayed intact. But I did exist. In flesh. In blood. In contractually binding tax forms. And now I was in the same room, standing between him and his fantasy. Noelle, he said, his voice flat and cold. I need to know everything. Not in pieces. Not next week. Right now. She was shaking. Not sobbing. Just shaking. Her eyes darted around the room like there was an emergency exit only she could see. But there wasn't. Not this time. No side doors. No rewritten narratives. Just me. And him. And 20 silent witnesses frozen in a party that had become a courtroom. She looked at me. Not like a wife looks at a husband. Not like someone who's sorry. But like a gambler who just realized the dealer's been counting cards since the first round. I never wanted this to happen, she whispered. But it did, I said. You made it happen. Lowell, please. I cut her off. No. No more rewrites. This isn't your little podcast episode. You don't get to shape the story after the climax. She looked at Ian, her voice cracking. I thought you were going to propose in June. I didn't think you'd actually. June. Ian's voice rose. You were planning to say yes in June while married to him? He pointed at me like I was some uncomfortable truth she thought she could sweep under the rug after a few mimosas. Kayla stepped forward, probably trying to de-escalate, but Noelle wasn't done sinking. I was going to leave him, she said, her voice sharp now, desperate. I just didn't want to blow everything up until I was sure. There it was. The script. The one cheaters always pull from their internal library when the lights come on. I was going to leave them. As if intention makes it less of a betrayal. As if planning the hit for later means you didn't already pull the trigger emotionally. I stepped forward, my voice quieter now. You weren't going to leave. You were going to double dip until one of us figured it out. And now we both did. She didn't deny it. Ian just stared at her like he was seeing a stranger inside a body he used to touch. Did you even love me? He asked. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Didn't answer. That was worse than a no. Ian turned and walked out. No big scene. No yelling. Just a quiet exit that somehow felt more violent than if he had thrown the cake across the room. And now it was just us. Me. Her. The people who stayed to see how it ended. Like rubberneckers at a wreck. No one dared move. No one said a word. Noelle wiped her eyes and looked at me. And what she said next almost broke me. Not because it hurt, but because it proved she never really knew me at all. Can we still try to fix it? Fix it. Like this was a flat tire. I should have said something profound. Or cold. Or poetic. Something that would go viral if someone happened to be filming from behind the potted plant. But my mind didn't go there. It didn't go anywhere, really. It just floated in the stillness that came after her question. Can we still try to fix it? I stared at her. I didn't recognize the person in front of me anymore. Not the woman I married. Not the woman I cooked for, laughed with, made future plans around. All I saw now was a shapeshifter, someone who could craft parallel realities and sell them with a straight face. She could lie in two directions at once and make you believe both. That takes skill. And I'll give her that much. Noelle was talented. I took a step toward her. Not aggressive. Not theatrical. Just close enough for her to hear me when I spoke without raising my voice. There is no we anymore. There's no fixing. You didn't break a vase. You broke a person. You broke two. She flinched. But I wasn't finished. You built a whole second life while I was still trying to fix the cracks in the first one. I sat in therapy and blamed myself for your distance. I asked if I'd become boring, too predictable. I blamed the routine. I blamed the pandemic. I blamed my damn haircut. But you, I laughed bitterly. You were out there taste-testing replacements like I was some expired carton in your fridge. Her mascara had started to smear, and for a split second I felt pity. Not for what she'd done, but for what she'd become. A woman whose truth was so tangled she couldn't walk a straight line without tripping over her own web. She opened her mouth again, but I held up a hand. Don't, I said. Don't give me the speech about how it started off innocent, or how it was emotional before it was physical, or how I didn't notice your sadness. I did. I noticed everything. I just kept forgiving things that didn't have names yet. The crowd had thinned. A few of her friends had quietly slipped out during the last 5 minutes. Kayla stood to the side, arms crossed, watching with the face of someone who'd seen car crashes unfold slower than this. Noelle took a shaky breath. Lowell, you've always had this way of making things sound worse than they are. There it was again. Her last defense, reframing reality. I'm not making it sound worse, I said. You're just used to people letting you narrate the story. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small key. Our apartment key, the one with the chipped paint on the edge from when she dropped it on the fire escape 2 winters ago. I held it up between us, then dropped it onto the table beside the half-melted birthday cake. It landed with a dull clink. Happy birthday, I said. Hope your wish was worth it. Then I turned and walked past the bar, through the side exit, and into the night. I didn't wait for a reaction. I didn't look back. Outside, the air was cold and honest. Kayla caught up to me a block later. Do you want me to drive? I shook my head. No. I need to walk. I need to feel this. She nodded. I've got your back. Just say the word. I didn't say the word. I just walked. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the crazy one. I thought leaving would feel like the end of something. That there would be some dramatic emotional collapse once the adrenaline wore off. But that's not how it went. There were no tears, no panic attack, no screaming into a pillow. I just kept walking, one step at a time, through half-empty streets and past bars buzzing with laughter I couldn't hear. I didn't go home. I couldn't. The idea of walking into that space, our space, filled with her perfume and her throw pillows and the wine glasses we got as a wedding gift, it made my skin itch. So I went to my brother's place. He wasn't home, but he'd given me a key years ago after I locked myself out in a snowstorm. I let myself in, fed his cat, and collapsed onto his couch without even taking off my shoes. I stared at the ceiling like it owed me something. My phone buzzed. And then again. And again. I ignored it until the fourth one. Noelle, 2:13 a.m., please talk to me. I need to explain. Noelle, 2:15 a.m., what you saw wasn't the whole story. Noelle, 2:18 a.m., you don't get to walk away and act like I'm the only one who messed up. Noelle, 2:22 a.m. Lowell, I'm begging you. Don't let this be the end. Each message was a deeper reach into desperation, but also a perfect snapshot of her unraveling. She wasn't sorry. She was cornered. Her texts weren't apologies. They were pleas for the power she lost the second I stopped playing my part. She didn't lose me that night. She lost the script. And she was scrambling now, trying to improvise her way back into control. I turned the phone over, screen down on the coffee table. I didn't block her. Not yet. Blocking would have felt like a clean cut. This wasn't clean. I wanted her to sit in the silence. To watch the message stay delivered, unread, a digital echo chamber of her own choices. At 3:07 a.m., she sent a voice note. I didn't play it. I couldn't. Because I knew her voice. I knew how she could twist sincerity out of lies like some kind of emotional contortionist. And I wasn't ready to hear her perform grief she hadn't earned. The next morning, I woke up to an even stranger message. Melissa, her best friend, hey? I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but you need to know something. She's been lying to everyone. Even him. Attached was a photo. Noelle. With another man. Different from Ian. Time-stamped from 3 months ago. Different city. Hotel lobby. Same expression on her face. The one she always gave when she was playing a part. Suddenly, I couldn't tell if the life we shared had been real at all. Was I the main character? Or just one of many plot devices she used to keep her world spinning? My phone buzzed again. But this time, it wasn't her. It was Ian. Ian, if you ever want to talk, man to man, I'm around. I stared at the screen for a long time. Maybe I would. Maybe not. But one thing was certain. I wasn't the only one piecing my life back together. I didn't reply to Ian. Not then. Not for a few days, actually. I wasn't avoiding him. I just didn't want my healing to start with someone else's hurt. We were both dragged into a lie we didn't ask for, and I wasn't ready to bond over shared betrayal like it was some twisted support group. I spent the next week in silence. Noelle kept messaging. A few of her friends reached out, pretending they just wanted to check in, but I knew what that meant. She was trying to control the narrative again. Plant sympathy. Minimize damage. That was her instinct. Always manage perception. Never face the truth head-on. But this time, I didn't give her an audience. I packed up what I needed and left the rest behind. The apartment lease was in my name, but the memories weren't worth the rent. I moved in with my brother temporarily, found a short-term sublet through a friend from work, and started looking for a place of my own. It was weird at first, being alone, eating alone, waking up without her hair clogging the drain or her perfume lingering in the hallway. But then the weirdness faded, and the silence started feeling clean. I began to breathe again. Not that tight, shallow kind of breathing you do when you're constantly waiting for the next emotional ambush, but the deep kind. The kind that reminds you your lungs still work and your chest isn't broken, just bruised. I went back to therapy. Told the truth this time. No sugarcoating. No, maybe I overreacted. Just honesty. My therapist nodded, didn't interrupt, and said the words that hit me the hardest. It's not your job to fix people who enjoy being broken. And just like that, the guilt began to loosen its grip. A few weeks later, I met up with Ian. We sat outside at a quiet cafe, 2 coffee cups between us, and enough baggage to fill an airport. We didn't talk about Noel much. Just enough to confirm we were both free now. Then we talked about anything else. Jobs, books, the strange peace that comes after the storm. It wasn't trauma bonding. It was survival camaraderie. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her to suffer, or to beg, or to show up at my door with a dramatic monologue. That was her world, theater, and image. I didn't live there anymore. I was rebuilding something quieter, something real. Months passed. I found a new apartment, got promoted at work, started journaling again, not to bleed onto paper, but to process. I even started dating, slowly, awkwardly, but without fear. I told the truth about where I'd been. The right people appreciated it. And Noelle? Last I heard, she moved to Chicago. Someone said she was working on herself. I hope that's true. I don't hate her. I don't wish her pain. I just hope one day she learns how to be honest before it's too late. But that's not my story anymore. Mine ended at a birthday party with 17 candles and started again the moment I walked out. Not with vengeance, but with freedom.